Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Shenandoah City Council meeting for November 16th, 2022. I look around and I see that everyone except Councilman Raymaker is here. He's on excused absence tonight. So we do have a quorum. We're going to stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance, and we're going to be followed, if you want to remain standing, follow it up with an invocation. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
The invocation tonight is going to be given by Mr. Derek Wynn of Lyle Engineering.
Thank you, Mayor. If you please pray with me. Father in heaven, we praise your name. We praise you as the infinite almighty God. Just thank you for the grace that you give us as finite beings. And we just pray for tonight, pray for this council, pray that you would guide them, that they would be able to make good decisions. Just give them the wisdom for that. And just pray for the city, keep the city safe. Pray for travel mercies as we go home. And just for this season, just that we would be thankful for all the blessings you give us. Most of all, for your plan of salvation through Jesus Christ. It's in his name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. We're going to move on to item number 5, Citizens Forum. We don't have anyone signed up for Citizens Forum. So we're going to move on to the presentation of the monthly MDD report.
Councilman Raymaker is out tonight. The report is in your agenda pack, and it provides a status of the reports that are funded by MDD. If you have any questions, just let us know.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Item number 7, the public hearing regarding the proposed annexation of certain property by the city of Shenandoah, Texas. The following properties are identified on the map as shown. Do we have a map?
We've got it.
Property, first property listed as A, is a 1-acre tract owned by the city of Shenandoah, as you can see on the screen. Tract B is a 0.998 acre tract owned by the city of Shenandoah. And item C is 1.878 acre tract owned by the city of Shenandoah. We're going to open up the public hearing at 7:03. Does anyone wish to speak regarding this? Yes. Yes, can you approach the podium, please? Please state, good evening. Please state your name.
My name is Jano Houston. I live in the Valley. Good evening, Mayor, Council. I just want to state for the record that I actually don't think I'm opposed to annexation, but I really don't have enough information, and I'm hoping to get some information tonight in true, intellectually honest conversation. I would still like to ask again for a town hall, because I think that's where conversation takes place. But in lieu of that, so if I could just say this, so Councilman Fletcher, with all respect, I'm reading your nonverbal communication, and I have actually talked to some of the people, leadership here at the city, and I think that the conversation is that to bring people forward and allow them to bring their concerns and even a complaint, right? I mean, if you're in the public service, you're going to hear people complain. But that's how you can tease issues apart, right? And so even if it's a complaint or if it seems negative, that's really how we get down to the bottom of having these discussions and understanding the issues from multiple sides. But thank you for that. So one of the questions that I have tonight is the city of Shenandoah owns all of these tracts plus one of the tracts that's right next door to the largest of the three that's not up for annexation. And my question is, since the city owns these, if you're looking at kind of controlling planning and development, but you own them, so don't you already have the ability to control what happens because you own that land? Is that?
That parcel,
Yes.
not everything.
Okay, so thank you, Councilman Brott. So the question would be, but if you own it, what does annexation change then? You already own it, you control it, so why annex it?
Brings it into the city, so now it's under the guidance of the city.
Is it not under guidance of the city already? It's in the ETJ, the city owns it, and we're also developing the integrated development code, the IDC, that covers the ETJ and would answer, some of these questions about planning and development, what could go there. Am I allowed to, may I direct that to you, Bill? Sorry.
Well, the answer is that this allows the city to then zone the property so that developers in the future will know what can be developed. Right now, they don't know because it's not.
Okay, now that's a little bit clearer. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. So, with respect, do you plan then, because if you're looking at what developers know could be planned for that, how that's zoned, then is the city planning on acquiring additional land in the Tamina area through purchase or through eminent domain?
Say it's not on our plans right now, but other developers will
Okay.
buy and develop that land.
So other developers may come in, purchase land.
We don't know.
But that land won't be annexed necessarily, right? If they don't purchase this land from you, they can come in and purchase it from the people who own the land right now.
It's only
Correct?
annex if they petition us to annex it for annex.
Correct. So the question is,
There's a lot of hypotheticals here, but go ahead.
no, go ahead. Yeah, tell me about the hypothetical.
If a developer comes in, which we don't know, okay, there's a lot of moving parts that could go on, Jenna. That
Okay.
we have no control over, we don't know, okay, because we're not developers ourselves, okay?
Correct, but in the agenda packet and in my discussions with, leaders of the city, the conversation has been to make sure that you could put control, and I get this, I'm actually not opposed to that outright, right? We're just having a conversation. But the question is, what control are you exerting by annexing? Go ahead, thank you,
Yeah, so
Councilman.
one of the things is with recent changes, the city is allowed to annex land we own that is non-contiguous. But if a developer comes in and wants to purchase land, it has to be contiguous in order to be annexed. So this gives developers an opportunity to become part of Shenandoah if they so desire. And it gives them a couple of different places where they might be able to do that.
Okay, so understood. So could I give a hypothetical just to make sure I
Sure.
understand? So there is the tract of land at the very top left-hand of the corner over there. It's nearest where the natatorium and the stadium are, because I've driven by there several times. I can't really get to that because it's kind of landlocked, if you will. But if you had someone who wanted to purchase land around that, they could then request to be annexed in, and then would they also maybe request to purchase the land from the city that we're annexing right now? Would that be a possibility?
Well, I mean, anybody can buy our land, it's just, we got to go through the process.
Okay, but that is a possibility, right?
Sure.
Okay. All right, so here's another question then. I just want to make sure I understand this, but we don't, as a city, we don't have on our
Radar.
on our radar, thank you. We don't have on our radar to purchase more land in the Tamina area.
No.
Okay, we don't have on our radar to acquire any land via eminent domain or acquire it, land swapping, anything like that. Okay, so, just to make sure I understand, so this is to make sure that if developers wanted to come in, we would have this annexed into our city, and they would know exactly how to develop that, maybe even just that small parcel? Like if we were just using that 2-acre parcel, would that be?
So if a developer came in, for
Yes, sir.
example, in, let's say, B, because that's the one that's most landlocked.
Okay,
If they came in and they said, you know, we want to buy all the land around it, and we want to offer you to buy that section of B, they would have to go through the process of purchasing B, but because they purchased B, they can't just build whatever they want around it. It all now has to be followed under our planning and zoning and go through that process as well.
could they purchase B and then purchase land around it that's not annexed though, right?
They could, and then ask for it to be annexed. It still has to come through planning and zoning, and it's already zoned. B is already zoned. So
Okay.
whatever they purchase around B would also then have to be the same zone.
Okay, so it sounds as though, and I don't want, you don't need to answer this, but it sounds to me like we've got developers now who are looking at that because
We have
we're
developers that approach the city all the time.
Correct.
And some with projects that we're not interested.
Like the Goofin
necessarily
development
to
or
see-
whatever, yeah.
Necessarily to see utilizing that land for that project because it doesn't fall into our growth plans for that area in specific. So we've gone through and are continuing to go through, we haven't finalized it yet, our comprehensive plan, but that's what planning and zoning is currently working on for all of that area, for all of our ETJs. And so that comprehensive plan identifies what we would like to see that land used for. Right now, anybody can come in and buy whatever they want up there and build what they want.
Correct.
And
Well,
there's
is it
no-
correct
There's no control that we have for that.
Okay.
We don't, they're not in our zoning, they're not in our building code, they're not in, so they can build whatever they want, however they want.
Okay, so we've got these 3 tracts of land that are going to help control that, but overall, they're not going to control that fully, right? And here's one thing I just want to put out, and then I'm getting ready to leave.
No,
When
you're
we're-
fine, ask as many questions as you want. I mean, it's-
So when we're talking about development, and again, I'm not anti-development either, but 2 questions that I have, and one is, if we're looking for specific types of development, and so one of the types of development that's been mentioned in previous conversations is multifamily housing. And with respect, what I'm going to say is, already in the city of Shenandoah, we've already allowed multifamily housing, Madera, woodlofts, et cetera. And even with the woodlofts, we allowed them within the last year to come in and, shrink their average square footage, for the reasons of COVID or development or whatever. So we didn't put a stop on some of the requests from those developers. But are we trying to stop some of the development coming in because we prefer developer A and not developer B?
I wouldn't say that we're trying to stop any development. What we're trying to do is plan what's going to be best for, and the best usage for the city in those areas.
Okay,
And it's not about builder A or builder B or developer C or whoever. That, for me, that has no bearing whatsoever. I don't care who's going to build where. The question becomes, is this the best choice for our city to have this land utilized for that? Right now, there is no control there.
well, and one of the reasons that I bring this out is because we have put in these, apartment complexes. And in the discussion that we had, the debates that we had right before the election, Mariscotto rightly said, we're pretty much almost built out. So if you're going to build anything, you're going vertical. And so to me, that seems to be part of the intention here is it possible that we know we're going to, okay, so go ahead, Councilman Pollard, answer, go ahead.
That has nothing to do with this.
Your mic.
I think that what's important is that, because I'm one of the ones that's leading this is to tell anyone who might want to develop that this is what we envision the uses to be. And so when they're in the city and then we zone it, then we don't have to have long discussions with someone about, I want to build X, I want to build a concrete plant. Okay, I want to build an asphalt plant that's noisy and it smells and everything. And we can say, I'm sorry, but as you can see, this is zoned, pick a zone, office commercial. You know, yeah. And so this is really delivering the message to developers. We believe this will develop over the years. It's delivering a message. This is what would be attractive to the city. When any developer can come to the city any day and do, as I think Councilman Fletcher said, we have developers, we've probably had in the last 3 years, 6 developers. They come and go. I want to build this, I want to build that, and then they come and disappear. So that all this is about is A, getting these properties that we own, because we own them in the city, and then zoning them so people can openly see what we perceive the best use of this.
But we don't have control over that zoning like with the IDC. We only have control if we annex.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. And
Because
then-
right now it's a county property.
Correct. And I agree with you. It is unincorporated. I agree with that. So just a couple of last questions and then I'll move out. But so annexing is to me, it's a very big deal. It's actually, it's not a trite step when you're annexing land into the city, especially in Tamina. And I guess my question is, like, I've got public notice signs over by my house, but they were on like the special use permit and they were on, you know, alcohol, late hours. You had to come up here, and I think we had to put that in the Conroe Courier, if I'm not mistaken. But, you know, if the Tamina residents didn't subscribe to the Courier, or they didn't come up to the city, because even last weekend, the notice wasn't posted that I saw last weekend. So how did the people in Tamina know to come and be part of this public hearing for annexation in their neighborhood, in their area? I mean, other than maybe having to go look at the Conroe Courier, and maybe they don't have a subscription, or how were they notified about the public hearing?
I don't know if we have to post, Bill. We don't have to post it.
So there's a difference between having to and
It's-
doing so?
It's been on the city's website, and
But-
if you have an interest, if you're from Tamina and you have an interest, then you look at the city's website.
And
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken, don't we have to mail to homeowners
Within
or
200 feet?
landowners within 200 feet of the property?
No, not outside, not, that's in the
What you made
city.
mention to was alcohol permits.
Yeah.
That's why you see the notice
Sure.
for everybody that drives, that this area is going to have an alcohol permit, or has applied for. Okay.
I'm just saying for the people who don't know, it would have been nice for us to have gone just a little bit of an extra mile, maybe hold a town hall in Tamina. You know, I appreciate the Bills, I appreciate what they do, but I just think that, you know, having $21 million of funds ready to put in water, sewer, that kind of improvement over there, your developers are going to come in, as you keep saying. And my concern is that the people in Tamina have an opportunity to just at least be heard. I think that putting water and sewer in is a fabulous thing, going down Tamina Road. But one of the things that it brings in, it's always a two-sided coin, right? We're going to have the county, Precinct 4 is looking at expanding Tamina. We've got traffic that's going to come into the area. Those developers are going to come in. I think that in just honest conversations, we owe it to them to at least have them enter in, and enter in as a community, not just a one or two set of people, you know. and I am worried about gentrification. I think that we can improve people's lives, and we can improve, water and sewer over there and other things, but we don't have to take over their community. We don't have to take over Tamina.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but
Yes, sir.
I think you're misinterpreting if you're thinking we're trying to take over Tamina, because that is absolutely not what we're
I don't
doing.
think, I don't think you're trying to take over, I don't mean it, but what I'm trying to say is that by putting that money out there and saying, hey, we're gonna put water and sewer down there, we could spend up to $21 million down here, we could do all of these things, we've got, conversations with entities in Tamina right now, and the point of this is that it is absolutely going to bring developers in, and at the end of the day, they could come in, and yes, they could buy people out, but.
So I think if we go back and just look at our ETJ,
Yeah,
that doesn't have, that part covers up through the railroad tracks and Johnson Road, and then north, and then back. It doesn't cover the other parts of Tamina that the water and sewer project will actually be servicing.
so I understand about the water and sewer project, I'm completely up to speed on that. Am I allowed to talk to John? John, but don't we have those wider maps that show those wider bubbles even back in the backside of Tamina on the east side of the spread of the ETJ?
Shenandoah's ETJ does extend over
Yeah.
the east side, yes.
So, I'm just, yeah. So anyway, and we're also having discussions right now.
Well, let me rephrase that. So our planning at this point is Tamina to Johnson Road.
Okay. Okay, well, and as I leave.
We're not looking to take over Tamina, we're not looking to.
I get that you're
to do
not,
all
sir.
that,
I
and-
just, what ends up happening is, it's the unintended consequences,
But
right?
that has to be the conversation for Tamina. Tamina has to decide.
But it has to be this, we're part of the city. I mean, we're making decisions for the
We are,
city.
but
We're the
not-
city.
But we're not Tamina. We don't have any influence in Tamina. We don't have,
We're not annexing.
we're not annexing Tamina
We're not even asking
into
them.
the Shenandoah, and never have asked that. In
Where's
fact,
the land- so where-
The conversation that has been had regarding expanding water and sewer was very specific about Tamina would remain Tamina, and it has nothing to do with anything other than Tamina being Tamina.
John, in the 2020 study, where it talks about West Tamina, it talks about the expansion of development for West Tamina. Is any of that on that map? Is West Tamina anywhere on that map?
The study that you're referring to?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we have water and sewer going to be on both sides of the railroad tracks, east and west.
And that's listed as West Tamina. I'm just making that statement.
And will remain Tamina.
But we are going in and we're making decisions that are going to affect.
Which decisions are we making that are going to affect Tamina by providing water and sewer, which is something they've already voted for?
And when you provide water and sewer,
Wait,
the developers
You
will
missed
come
the
in.
last part that I said.
No,
They already voted to do that. We didn't have the influence to tell them that this is how they should vote.
I'm sorry, vote for.
They had to agree that this is
Oh,
what
for
they
the,
wanted.
on the other, okay, not
Correct.
on annexation, on the other.
Right, the annexation
OTWS,
doesn't have
yeah.
anything to do with Tamina.
Okay, all right, thank you for your information.
And by the way, you read me wrong. I wasn't.
Oh,
I
okay.
wasn't disengaging from you.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. Could I just say as I walk away, it's still, thank you for the information, I
Do
still.
you have more questions? I mean, if you're fuzzy
Yeah.
on something, let's continue to
No,
talk.
I'm done, thank you for taking the time, thank you. I still don't know that I have all the information to be in favor of annexation. I'm not necessarily against it in general, but I still think there's a lot of information that we could have conversations on. And this is a good way to have a conversation, like if we could have
Well, that's
town
why we
hall and
have-
discussion.
That's why we have open meetings, is so that we can have this.
And I told them that when it's council inquiry, you can't talk to me. We can't have a conversation. All I can do is make statements and walk off, right? I mean, that's why conversations are good. But anyway, thank you. Thank you.
Does anyone else want to speak to this item? Having no one else to speak, we're going to close the public hearing at 7:25. Moving on to item number 8. Discussion and possible action to adopt the following ordinance. An ordinance annexing the hereinafter described territory to the city of Shenandoah, Montgomery County, Texas, and extending the boundary limits of said city so as to include the said hereinafter described property within said city limits, and granting to all the inhabitants of said property all the rights and privileges of other citizens, and binding the said inhabitants by all of the acts, ordinances, resolutions, and regulations of said city, and adopting a service plan for agreement. The following properties are identified in the map, which is the ones that we have been speaking about. Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the request for annexation.
A second. We have a motion to approve annexation by Councilman Fletcher, seconded by Councilman Pollard. Any discussion? Anyone? No? Good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item number 9. Excuse me. Discussion and possible action to adopt the following ordinance. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Shenandoah, Texas, amending Section 14-231H to provide for a decision maker and to allow an exemption in extreme circumstances.
Yes. Council, we had a situation arise recently where a gentleman, 79 years old, was a registered sex offender. He was bedridden, but he was within 894 feet of the toddler park. And he had requested an or his daughter had requested an exemption. When we looked at the statute, we realized that the statute did not specifically say who could decide whether or not to grant an extension. And the statute was unclear as to whether an extreme emergency could warrant an extension. So for that reason, we think that paragraph H needs to be amended. In this case, we have provided that the police chief would make that determination for the length of time that he thinks, if any, is appropriate. It also came to our attention that occasionally we have had in our rehab hospitals people who have been registered sex offenders that might want to be there for 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And if you pass this, there would be a request made, and it would be up to Troy to decide, or the police chief to decide whether or not to grant that.
So I know we worked on this ordinance together, and I know when we brought it here to council, we actually brought up a couple of these scenarios. And if I remember correctly at that time, and again, I think the one example that we used was the situation in which we had, a minor that was 17 and had been with somebody that was 14. He would, or she then would have to become a registered sex offender. And while that may, be an extreme situation, and unfortunately with this 79-year-old who's bedridden, it doesn't change the fact that they're still a sex offender. And and I trust Troy with my life and quality of choices and decisions that he makes. I'm not saying this against Troy, but to put this, on one person to make that choice, I probably, and I think that's what we discussed, was how many times are we going to have to come back and then determine why and how and when, and that's why it was left out, because we'd originally talked about putting a clause in there to determine that. But again, at the end of the day, they're still a sex offender. And whether they're coming here to a rehab, I have a business that I'm required to do a background check for sex offenders. And since there is a school bus stop, you know, across the street from our business, that creates an issue. So that's part of the state law. That's part of what happens when you break the law. So I personally am opposed to, one, making an exception at this point, and two, just making that exception where one person is making the choice. Again, I don't think Troy is going to make a bad choice, but I'm not looking at just Troy being the police chief. I'm trying to look down the road. If that's what we would identify as one person, that's a lot to put on one person. And while, again, you know, I would trust Troy in any decision that he would make on my behalf, I may not his predecessor. So.
And you can elect either way to grant no exceptions, or you can have city council grant an exception.
Yeah, I just don't think that we want to be in the business of having to make that determination every time somebody wants to come through the door and go through that process and saying, well, it's okay for this one, but it's not okay for this one. If we have a sex offender that's in one of our rehab centers, what happens if they get out? That was the whole purpose of having the ordinance come into play, is so we didn't have to take that risk in our hotels or in our city. So again, I personally would be opposed to making an exception simply because one person is this or one person is that.
Yeah,
Any exception.
Any exception.
I mean, I tend to agree with Ted. I have a question on the grandfather clause. I know typically, you know, something's pre-existing the law. I mean, I'm totally opposed with the rehab hospitals or anything like that. No, figure it out. Figure out what hospital you're going to before you show up here. That's not. But you know, if somehow someone could establish, and I also agree, I don't think necessarily that one person, or if we do, it's got to be like somehow super public. But going back to the grandfather question, on most of our ordinances, if we pass something and something's pre-existing, there's this clause that allows whatever was already existing to continue to exist, right? If basically I said, look,
Well, we don't have any
right, you're
living
not allowed
with,
to paint your house pink anymore.
yeah. But in others, we don't have any living within 1,000 feet.
So we have nobody living within 1,000 feet right now.
Right.
So
The only exception which is required by law is if you owned a house within 1,000 feet before you were a convicted sex offender.
right.
When you get out of jail, you can return to that house. That's
But
by
that's a
state law.
exception that's already,
That's state law.
it already covers us.
Mhm.
So again, I'm not clear why we suddenly need to have an exception to a sex offender rule.
You don't have to.
So, okay.
I understand why it's being proposed, because we have a situation in which somebody is bedbound, end of life, and, you know, families trying to bring them into their home at this point. I sympathize with that because I deal with that every day.
So that was the piece that I missed. They're trying to bring them into a home,
Correct.
which is, they're not, they
Right.
didn't
This-
currently
this-
exist there. That's what I
They
was
do not,
heard.
they do not
Okay.
live there, correct. But you're right, when this was written, we had, I think, 4 sex offenders that actually lived here at the time this came into play.
Right.
So they were grandfathered in. However, if they left for a 7-day period or 2-week or whatever it was, I don't recall at this point, but they weren't allowed to return.
That's what I misheard,
Yeah.
though. I misheard. I
But
thought that was
the
pretty-
exceptions for the case that we have somebody that is elderly, bedbound, end of life type of a scenario that the family's wanting to care for and wants to bring them into their home, but they can't live there because they're a registered sex offender.
Yes.
So does the state, Ted made reference to the state laws, for a sex offender to apply by submitting an application? Do they allow for applications to be submitted, the state? And then the
That
second-
is,
Like to get off the roster.
the state only allows one exception, and that is if you owned a house before you were convicted, you can come back to that house.
No
There's
other hardship.
Right.
No other hardship.
No other hardship. It's only if a local wants to be more lenient, then the local government can be more lenient. Correct.
Okay, and
It allows that, though.
Yes.
Section .231-H says, does not provide for an exemption under extreme circumstances. Who determines what's an extreme circumstance?
Well, if you wanted to make that amendment, the way it is written is Troy would.
The chief police would.
The chief of police would, or you could change it and city council could make that decision. The reason I wrote police chief was simply because the exemption would be on a limited time basis. So if Troy was making it, he could grant someone an extension for 3 weeks, and then at 3 weeks could say no more or yes more, whatever.
But then the ordinance does state, or in your description does say that the residents located within 1,000 feet of a child safety zone before the date of the ordinance was adopted.
In other words, that's to comply with state law. That part. That's just a repeat of state law.
It's a shell, it's because of the Shell grant is the
Yeah.
clause.
Correct.
Yeah, I totally agree with Ted that whether you pass this or not is simply a decision, is a philosophical decision. Do we want to make any exception not allowed by state law? And if we don't, then there's a motion to not pass this ordinance.
To deny.
To deny, yes.
Okay, I'll motion we deny.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion to deny the amending section 14-231H to provide for a decision maker and to allow an exemption under extreme circumstances. That motion was made by Councilman, what? Anything?
Me?
Yeah.
I second.
Seconded by Councilman Fletcher. Any further discussion?
I think we ought to make exception for this man. It makes logical sense to me, and I would certainly trust the police chief to make that determination on a limited basis. And I would be okay with the city council doing it too, because I would expect that this would be a very, very rare exception that would be voting on. I think it's a good idea.
I think there may be some better ways to handle it, but generally speaking, I'm pretty much in agreement with Councilman Fletcher that we really want to avoid this case. And I think even if this is an exception, I mean, tonight I'm opposed to this. It is something I think we
Could revisit.
we could revisit. It's going to have to be some, you're talking about threading a very tight needle and sort of sorting out what really is an exception and what's not, and think about the process long and hard about how to go about getting exceptions. And it just, this is way too sudden, and I think this is way too broad. It gives way too much, puts way too much on one person to make a decision that could, have a detrimental impact on our entire community. So.
Anything else?
Can I make a statement? So, I mean, to me, it puts a lot of liability on the city. So I give you my answer right now. It wouldn't be within that 1,000 feet.
What'd you say, Chief?
It wouldn't be within 1,000 feet of.
It wouldn't be
liability
within
on the
1,000
city.
feet. To me, it's
He's just maintain the safety zone.
Yeah.
because I'm too much of a liability.
Yeah.
If something were to happen, no, sir.
Well, and I think that's what we originally talked about when we wrote it this way, is that it could be too much of a liability for the city to say, well, we allowed this one and something happened,
Yep,
and then who makes that choice?
absolutely.
Yeah.
There's
So
too many
because of that-
variables, and that's why we wrote it the way that we wrote it.
Right. So because of that, every time I would be asked, I would say it's whatever the recommended 1,000 feet.
All right, the motion made by Councilman Brott and seconded by Councilman Fletcher. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 10, discussion and possible action to adopt the following resolution. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Shenandoah, Texas, appointing council members of the Shenandoah Civic Club Board.
Councilman Pollard indicated an interest in serving on the Civic Club as a council representative. Councilman Brott has been serving for a number of years, and he graciously offered to step down to allow Councilman Pollard an opportunity to serve. I spoke with Councilman Fletcher, who indicated that he wished to remain on Civic Club. So this resolution will appoint Councilman Pollard and also maintain Councilman Fletcher as a council representative.
I move that we appoint Councilman Pollard to council representative on the Civic Club.
A second?
I got a motion by Councilman Fletcher to approve, seconded by Councilman McLeod. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 11, discussion and possible action to award a contract for flooring replacement at City Hall.
This was a budgeted capital project at our last budget workshop. Staff sought pricing for the floor replacement, and we're pretty happy with the pricing we got. I will say the two lowest bids were within $1,000 of each other. So we are recommending Floors for Living, recommending awarding them the contract for $38,115. We budgeted $40,000 for the project, so we came in under budget.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion to approve by Councilman McLeod, seconded by Councilman Fletcher. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion, item number 12, discussion and possible action to award a contract for drainage work at the city park.
This was another capital project that was budgeted at the last budget workshop. Staff sought pricing from several contractors, and the low bid was from Solid Bridge Construction. And it actually came in underneath the $50,000 threshold where we'd have to do sealed competitive bids, so that was great news. So we were able to just solicit bidding. We budgeted $65,000 for this project, so we came in less than half of what the cost estimate was going to be. So staff is recommending awarding Solid Bridge Construction the project.
You have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Councilman Fletcher, seconded by Councilman Pollard. Any discussion?
Another example of having a good reputation among our developers and builders and getting multiple bids. Thank you.
Absolutely.
It'll be nice not to see all those mud puddles in the park. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 13, discussion and possible action to award a contract for the construction of 4 streetlights on David Memorial Drive.
So this is another capital project that wasn't budgeted at the last workshop, but the previous. We've been working with Entergy quite a while to get some pricing on this, and have finally got the pricing for 4 additional street lights on David Memorial. This is going to be the section between, thanks Chris, between the Shenandoah Park roundabout and the Wood Forest Stadium area. It's a real dark area if you've driven through there at night, and it's got a curve to it, so the street lighting will definitely help light it up and make it a safer thoroughfare. The pricing that Entergy got us, so Entergy will do the installation for this. The pricing they got us was $44,659.87. Staff is recommending awarding and constructing.
So we actually budgeted 110 for this?
We budgeted 110 and we were looking at originally get
14
14 lights, and then the price came in way over budget.
And then we reduced to 4 lights, and it's coming way, way under budget.
Right. Yeah, we wanted,
Per
so
light,
the
they're
rest
about
of
the
the,
same, right?
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Per light, that's roughly about the same, right?
It is, it's a little bit
Probably,
less for these 4 lights than, but it's very
Because
close.
we're gonna add the rest as we do the road work, we're gonna add the rest of the lights.
Well, so the remainder of the lights were actually south of here,
Well, that's
from
right.
This was the
Wood
project
Forest
that
down
was the other
to
project,
Tamina.
We just decided there was enough bleed-through lights.
There is. It would have been nice to have direct lighting on the street, but there's enough light bleed from the parking lots and other businesses. It's visible.
Lit up in sympathy with the parking.
Right.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
I said it's lit up within sympathy of the parking lot.
Oh, yes.
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 So are these gonna be stylized, the steel commercial, they're gonna be more of the black?
So they're going to match what you currently see in the roundabout.
Okay.
It's actually a custom pole that we got. They're 42 feet tall, I believe, the black Cobra head LED fixture on them. Grid powered.
Yes.
Motion, we award the contract to, is that better?
Second?
We have a motion by Councilman Brat to approve and award the contract for the street lights on David Memorial, seconded by Councilman Fletcher. Let me ask a question. So the rest of David Memorial, is that going to be covered by the David Memorial Extension Project? The lighting of that area?
So the lighting will be separate, but staff will be coordinating with Entergy to get the lighting. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but I believe that the lighting from Entergy was separate from the road construction, up to city limits.
It's separated, right now, it's only planned to go city limits. County portion is not planned to be bid at this time.
Not at this time.
Right. It's not part of the project.
Right. So you'll know when you enter Shenandoah city limits.
Right.
We'll have lights.
Lights.
And a sign.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 14, discussion and possible action to award a contract for construction of additional parking at the toddler park.
So this project is to add the 4 pull-in parking spaces for the toddler park. The project was bid and bids were open November 9th. We received 4 bids. We had $115,000 budgeted, and the low bidder, Odigo Services, came in at $85,080. Blau Engineering checked their references. The references were very complimentary, and they have a lot of experience with both concrete work and working municipal jobs.
Good.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve by Councilman McLeod,
Second?
seconded by Councilman Brat. Any more discussion? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Discussion and possible action regarding converting the solar LED streetlights on Pine Forest.
Yes, council, this was discussed just an hour ago at the MDD board meeting. So recently, all 4 lights on Pine Forest were reported to staff to be out. So we went out to take a look at them and change the batteries again. The batteries are expensive, about $225 per battery, and each light takes 4 batteries, so it adds up quickly. As we were looking at the lights, we wanted to make it more consistent with the other commercial lighting that we have, which is wired to the grid. These are the last 4 battery solar lights on commercial streets. And so we reached out to the original contractor who did the grid extension to the other lights and got a price for it. It was presented to MDD because it is MDD eligible, and they voted to fund the wiring these 4 lights to grid power. Sorry, I don't know if I mentioned the 4 lights are on Pine Forest Drive. But MDD did vote to fund that project. And so this is before council with the understanding that it's funded by MDD, but since it is within the city, city council would need to approve the project. The pricing that we received was, I've got it here, from P2 Electric Services was $18,485.25. I know that's pretty quick, so I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Did they replace the head in this case? Or are they just replacing the base?
So the fixture will remain the same. They will need to put a new driver in to handle the 120 power versus the 24 volt.
So we're not going to be increasing lumens or coverage or anything like that?
Actually, we probably will see an increase in lumens because with the battery system, we had to reduce the output just to make them last even
Fair, right.
2 nights.
Yes, the danger of being early adopters.
And that was the problem with these lights from the beginning, is they never met the autonomy, the 5-day autonomy requirement of producing light with 0 charge for 5 days. They never met it.
Are these the same type of lights that we have in the city?
They're different than the ones on the residential streets. They have a higher output, I believe 120 watt output versus probably 60. And that was always the folly of these, is they had the same battery capacity as a light that was putting out half the power. So they're slightly different.
I move that we award the project to P2 Electric Services.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Fletcher, seconded by Councilman Pollard. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 16, discussion and possible action to authorize the purchase of police department vehicles.
So Mayor and Council, I've spoken to y'all several times about the vehicle situation, the chip shortage. It's going around nationally, not only with the public vehicles, but law enforcement vehicles. It's hit us extremely hard. I went to TPCA with another chief from Austin area to Kerrville, and we discussed the vehicle situations. He's having the same vehicles problem as we're having. We just can't find any. So today I have Dan Al, who's the general manager for Siddons Martin. He is on the phone and he can discuss with you the current situation with the vehicles.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I don't know if I have the floor.
You do.
So you have the floor, Dan.
All right, great. So, like you said, my name is Dan Al. I'm the GM for Siddons Martin Emergency Group on the EVS division. Run the emergency vehicle side, the graphic side, transportation. Also handle most of the company's fleet. So I'm pretty well versed in getting vehicles not only for the company but for other agencies as well. I also want to make sure that I'm clear that we are not the dealer, and we do not sell the vehicles directly, and we do not have a dog in the fight when it comes to the chassis itself. We don't care what it is or where it comes from. We just like to do the business of upfitting and graphics. The primary reason for me to be included in this is to kind of give some additional third-party insight of what kind of struggles the industry is seeing as far as vehicles, specifically for law enforcement and fire vehicles, whereas fire uses most civilian trucks as far as F-250s and larger chassis. Police package vehicles are more specific and geared towards law enforcement, moreover as a requirement for their performance and safety features that are provided in the type of line of work that law enforcement conducts. So, with that being said, we just delivered 3 vehicles for Sam Houston State University They were 2022 Tahoes that were ordered in 2020. We just received them a couple of months ago, got all the parts, sent them for paint, so forth. So 2 years is the timeline that it took to get their vehicles from the time they ordered them to delivery. And we actually have 2021's orders and 2022's orders pending with them. They're continuing to order vehicles. They're just not available is the problem. The vehicles have been canceled. GM, Ford, and Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge have all said, we'll take your orders, but we're not guaranteeing that we're going to build them, and we're also not price protecting. The price protecting is the big red flag. You can order them at, price X, and when they show up, they say, well, we've had these price increases since, and you may be up another $8,000, $10,000, $15,000 just in the chassis price. Contract bid price means nothing because they will just tell you, buy it or don't buy it, it doesn't matter. Furthermore, the days of having vehicles available and 8 to 10 week turnarounds is long gone. I know the chief had mentioned that people are mixing their fleet, and it is true. We've even started to quote out. People are asking about Nissan, if you can believe that. So of course there's nothing available for them, so they don't end up getting them. But all in all, the vehicles themselves are just not obtainable, and whatever is there, it's gone quicker than you can pick up the phone. So the time to get something is when it's actually available, and picking and choosing is a dangerous game to play if you're actually needing fleet. The biggest problems that we're having, besides the order banks, which opened for 1 day, for all of General Motors in the entire country, they opened for 1 day for orders, and they closed the same day. And they said, thank you very much, and we'll let you know what we decide to produce. I know for 2022 orders, just one dealer had 900 units canceled, which is pretty significant. And only dealers that are able to produce or participate in fleet for government and law enforcement, because not all dealers can, are the only ones that can order, and they're canceling them by the thousands. 96% of Ford F-150s were canceled for 2022 and pushed to 2023, and same for the Super Duties. We can't get answers from the dealer because the dealer can't get answers from the manufacturer, and then everybody's frustrated. But we're just not able to get the information or the chassis. Period. I know that's kind of a lot of information to throw at you, and I'm happy to take any questions or try to do best as I can to answer any questions, concerns that you may have.
Thank you.
Do y'all have any questions for Dan?
Well, everything he said is correct. I mean, I've been in the car business for 30 years, and I know if the Ford, for example, doesn't have all the parts, that order never gets bucked, which is a term for them that they've got all the parts. Here it comes down the line. Okay, so that's true. My problem is these Durangos have already had a birthday, and isn't the Durango the smaller one of the?
If that was a question for me, I couldn't understand you. I'm sorry.
Well, it wasn't for you. I'm looking at the Freedom Chevrolet thing for the 2021 Durangos, and they've already had a birthday. Okay, and I understand. Go ahead.
Yes, that is true. But keep in mind that the manufacturer's warranty doesn't start until the vehicle's titled. It doesn't start when the vehicle's produced.
Correct.
So you still get
as long as it's on an MSO, I agree. Right. So I'm not worried about the warranty. I'm just worried about the price of it. Is that not the smaller of the two SUVs? Or is that?
It's about the same size as an Explorer, not slightly bigger. It is smaller than a Tahoe for sure, but it is about the same size, if not a little larger than the Explorer.
Is it a V8?
Yes, they're
I
V8s.
mean, my understanding is that's one of the bigger problems we had with the Explorer, that,
Yes,
not to mention the size, but, you know.
but the power, yes, the
Power.
lack of power. So what Dan's trying to express and help me explain is the fact that right now, given the current situation with vehicles, right now, it's time to grab whatever vehicle you can find. There are no cars on the ground. I located 6 Chargers in Oklahoma, but by the time I got a response from the dealership, they were gone. They're just not on the ground. When they are on the ground, yes, you're gonna pay a premium for it. There's just no cars available. So just trying to get cars, and the problem is, this is not gonna be a one-year thing. This is gonna continue for the next couple of years. The cars still aren't coming. So what's happening is, of course, they're saying that they will build X amount, but they're not building these cars. They're canceling orders. I've had many chiefs to say that they've had their orders canceled. They'll order 50 cars and they'll tell them, hey, we can only build 25. And then they'll come back and say, well, actually, we're gonna only build 15. We can give y'all 15. So, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Chief, then based on what you said, if we approve this, you could lay your hand on the hood tomorrow of these 2 cars.
These are on the ground, and that's, we just can't find them. That's the problem. Ordering them, good luck when they get here, and good luck on the price. There's no guarantee. Nobody's guaranteeing the price of these vehicles when they get to us. So, as you can see, I put the Tahoe quotes in there. Those are significantly higher by 11,000 plus from the last ones we purchased. But there's no guarantee that that's going to be the price when they get here, because they can care less. If they say they're building them for us, they get here, they don't care if we buy it or not, because somebody out there is going to buy them, because everybody's desperate right now. This morning I was looking up police vehicle shortage, and you can look in the video section right now, you can pull it up, and there is news article after news article after media footage of agencies being interviewed having police vehicle shortages. It's just the current situation we are right now. The chips are going to the cars that bring money. These police vehicles in the past haven't brought as much money, so that's where the chips are going to go. And they can't promise, how many they're going to make. So we can order, but they can cancel their order, and then we're stuck in the boat of not getting vehicles.
So these are live, ready to go?
These are on the ground. These are on the ground, ready to be upfitted. Yes, sir.
With parts in stock.
With parts in stock.
Yeah, I'm not a great fan of them, but this is the situation we're at.
Better to have a running car than not.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing.
Kind of where we're.
I do have one question. Do we have local law enforcement agencies? Because I know, always where to try things out. I was around, we did the Explorer, and we got some of our taller people that, didn't particularly care to get into those vehicles. Do we have local law enforcement, somebody around that's running the Durango package that we can go sit in? I mean, if it's a miserable experience, we
Right.
just spent $150,000 on vehicles that utterly nobody wants to drive.
Right. More than likely, these are probably going to go to the sergeants again in order to push the Tahoes down to the patrol guys. That's what we would have to do as far as vehicles, as far as other vehicles, other agencies that have these vehicles. There's some out there that do have the Durangos. It's pretty much a Charger, as far as what's in it. It's the Hemi,
Yeah, it's the same
everything
engine,
like that.
yeah.
It's pretty much the same vehicle. As
just meant
far
to-
as size,
yeah.
it's about the same size as the Explorer. Luckily, it has more power than the Explorer, but it is a Dodge, it's a Chrysler product. It's just one of those situations. It's tough right now. it is one of the biggest issues that everybody's having. I believe Kathy had a conversation with somebody the other day in law enforcement, and they were complaining about not being able to find vehicles. And so being able to touch a vehicle and say, hey, look, we have these vehicles right here, hey, that's all we can do. Like I said, I was willing to drive all the way to Oklahoma to pick up those other cars, but unfortunately, when they finally called me back, they were gone.
So the flip side of this, and this is somewhat related, but I think we may need to figure out, maybe talk to Lisa and legal and figure out, it may be a situation that we need to do something weird and look ahead and place an order for 24. I know that's really unusual, but it may be beneficial, even with the understanding that, hey, it could get canceled, but if we, authorize the money to go ahead and place the 24 order, I just think that's something given.
I agree, and that's what I would suggest, is that if we can place orders now on Tahoes, so if we get them, we get them. If we don't, at least we plan
at
ahead.
least we tried.
And if we find other vehicles on the ground, then we can cancel that order and get that. We're just going to have to do what we can do and be creative to find them.
And then, the other thing, of course, is continue to maintain our fleet. I don't think we want to be thin in our fleet at any point.
No.
Even if we're running mileage way much higher than we're used to, find ways that we can continue to maintain our current existing fleet.
Right.
And just
we
hang on to our own vehicles.
Right, yes, and that's what we've been doing since I've been put in this position. We changed up the vehicle situation and how we hold them, and we definitely hold them a lot longer than what the standard agency does. So the agency standard for holding vehicles is 3 years or 100,000 miles, and of course, most of our vehicles are over 3 years old. We have vehicles we have some 16s, we have several 17s, and of course 18s that are in the fleet. We have 3 vehicles that are 90,000. We have 3 vehicles that are 80,000. It doesn't sound much to a general vehicle, but to a police car, I'm sure the mayor can agree that 100,000 miles on a police car is like having 250, 300,000 miles on a regular car, because it just the wear and tear that we put on them. So, yeah, we've rearranged how we do the vehicles, how we hold the vehicles, but it's just an unfortunate thing, and unfortunately, we're going to run into this problem next year. And as Councilman McLeod said, that's my suggestion, is that we look forward and go ahead and try to place some bids, place some orders in while we can, and then if we get them, we get them. Yeah. But they won't be here for a while.
I'll move that we approve the purchase of 2 police Durangos.
We have a motion to approve the purchase of the police department vehicles by Councilman Fletcher,
Second.
seconded by Councilman McLeod. Any more discussion?
I would say if you just keep on that track, I know that we're trying to add, 2 vehicles a year, or rotate 2 vehicles out. If we go ahead and plan ahead and get on the list to.
Yes,
Tahoes.
it's typically 3 that we do, but unfortunately, we can't find 3 right now.
Right.
We've only found 2, so, yes, sir.
I mean, if we do that, if we get them, great. If we don't, then we're back here to the same spot. We can move forward that way.
Exactly.
So you order 10, if we get 2, we're happy.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe order 3, so we're not on the hook for 10.
Yes. We can always cancel the order if we find one on the ground somewhere.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly. If things start easing and there are, dealerships that have some, we can order. Yeah, absolutely.
It's just a numbers game.
Yeah, that's right. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 17, discussion on possible action to approve city holidays for 2023.
Council, this is an annual step that we take to approve the holidays for the upcoming year. They're all per policy. One of the items that is a little bit different is Christmas Day and Christmas Eve. because Christmas Day is on a Monday and Christmas Eve would be on the day after, I'm sorry, the day before, we're looking at observing Christmas Eve on the Tuesday after Christmas. So that would be observed since it would be Sunday, if that makes sense.
Not observing Friday.
So, well,
That's what I was gonna ask, is if
That
staff
would-
thought that might be Friday.
our city secretary took the initiative to survey some other cities, and a lot of them are doing the Monday, Tuesday rather than the Friday, Monday.
Okay.
And the logic is that, you know, the day after Christmas might be a little bit more welcome to staff than, you know, going right back to work the day after Christmas after, you know, a busy time.
Motion to approve.
A second.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Brat, seconded by Councilman Pollard. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 18, discussion and possible action to adopt the minutes of the October 12th and October 26th, 2022 regular meetings.
Motion to approve them is read.
So a motion to
Second.
approve by Councilman Brat, seconded by Councilman Fletcher. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 19, discussion and possible action to ratify the accounts payable for October 2022.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Fletcher, seconded by Councilman McLeod. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Civic Club updates.
Council, Mr. Ballmer is out of town and Debbie has been out ill, so we don't have a lot of updates tonight. I will remind everyone that Lighting of the Angels is the 29th, which is the Tuesday immediately following Thanksgiving. Debbie did share with me that they are looking for volunteers to help with setup and takedown, and that's a lengthy process. It takes us all day Monday, all day Tuesday, the events that night, and then all day Wednesday to take down. So it's a lot of people, a lot of work by the Civic Club and staff, so any volunteers would be very welcome.
And that they don't have to be there the whole day. An hour
Right,
or
right.
2 hours.
Yeah, just whatever time
Whatever they can-
that they
whatever
can
they can
contribute
do.
would
Whatever
be,
time they can
yeah.
afford to
And it's,
contribute.
it's putting decorations together.
putting tablecloths and centerpieces, just any amount that someone's willing to give is appreciated.
Great.
And I know I can update for the Civic Club there. All the entertainment's secured now, and
Yes, sir.
it's ready to go. I mean, they're ready to go. They just need to get it all together.
Yeah, they did a walkthrough of the site with Debbie and Public Works, I believe, last week.
Thank you. City Attorney updates.
None tonight.
None tonight. City Administrator updates.
I've got a few for you tonight. As I shared with MDD earlier, the remaining funds for David Memorial was approved in Commissioners Court on the 8th. So that puts us in a great position to move forward with the project and get it completed. So that's a great for the city. This has been a long time coming. Police update. Police Department was involved in 2 pursuits recently, and they apprehended 4 suspects that had been involved in multiple catalytic converter thefts. So Police Department continues to pursue those cases, among many others. The pool deck rehab project is completed. There's a few punch list items that Joseph has them working on, but otherwise it's done, and it looks great, much improved. Also, John Maynor, our CVB director, applied recently for some awards, and we received 2 awards. They are Bronze Adrian Awards for winning entries in the Digital Innovation Division, the Digital Advertising category, and for the Integrated Campaign for Business to Consumer Division. The Adrian Awards are now in their 66th year and are the largest and most prestigious competition in global travel marketing. So this took a lot of work on John's part, but it has paid off, and we will continue to pursue these things in the future. So John has done a lot of work to bring the CVB to a good place and continues to implement new programs. So that's great news for the city. And then last but not least, as I said, Lighting of the Angels, Tuesday the 29th, from 6 to 8 over here at the Public Works Building. And that's all I have.
Thank you. I think that's great news about the funding of David Memorial. I know it's been a long time coming,
Yes.
but I was there when the commissioners approved that at least the county portion of the funding, and looking forward to starting construction next.
Hopefully by the end of the year.
By the end of the year. It's great news. Thank you. All right, item number 23. Discussion and possible action to ratify an agreement with Old Tamina Water Supply Corporation.
I would ask that we move to executive session and have some questions for our attorney.
Okay. We are going to move to executive session now and temporarily suspend the council at 8:16.
from 200 to 170. Yes.
All right, executive session ended at 8:39. We're going to reconvene the council meeting at 8:39. Do we have a motion?
It's not like a.
No action.
No action taken at the executive session. Excuse me.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve a contract between the city of Shenandoah and Old Town Water Supply Corporation as written by our attorney Farabee with two changes. The first in the first sentence, this agreement is contingent upon Montgomery County awarding funds sufficient to complete the project of at least $21 million of ARPA funds. And then paragraph number 9, the last sentence, as far as further consideration for transfer of the CN, contemporaneous with its transfer, the city will pay Tamina an additional sum of $170,000. This would bring the total to approximately $550,000.
Second it?
Okay, we have a motion as stated by Councilman McLeod and seconded by Councilman Fletcher. Any discussion? None? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Councilman inquiry.
I'm good.
Fletcher? Good. Councilman Pollard? Done? Councilman Pratt?
Good.
Councilman McLeod?
Mostly just to wish everybody, staff and everyone else, happy Thanksgiving. It's coming upon us. Continue to drive safe. Appreciate Shenandoah Police Department keeping our roads safe and keeping inebriated drivers off the road. So be aware of that if you're going to be in our city, that you need to be sober and safe. And happy holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It is 8:41 and this council meeting is adjourned.